Karina looked at the silent Duke. Apparently she had guessed correctly how clever she was. But the next moment the Duke picked Karina up horizontally. "This house isn't suitable for sick people. You'd better rest in my quarters. I know you don't like me, but I don't want you to think I'm a malicious person," he told her as he carried her to his room. Sleep well, half asleep in the Duke's arms, Karina couldn't fight off the drowsiness and mumbled a plea for him not to call the doctor. The Duke Marion quickly reassured her, "Don't worry, I'll take care of you myself." That day the Duke, who had confidently declared his daughter wouldn't get far, received news from his subordinates that Karina had left the Southern Territory. This news made him feel utterly humiliated. Angrily slamming his fist on the table, he screamed her name, Karina Leupold. How old is she now, yet still so immature? Though I understand she might feel upset from her perspective, but setting that aside, even if she was hurt, she shouldn't act this way, running away from home to make us worry. She's truly detestable. Her mother, though, was a little worried. Would she encounter any dangers on the road? "Perhaps we should send more people to bring her back," she suggested. But her suggestion was rejected by the Duke. What's the point of bringing her back since she wants to escape this family? Let her go. Running away was her own choice, unless she bows her head and admits her mistake. She's not welcome in this house. Running away over a birthday party, is that reasonable? Besides, if this news gets out, wouldn't our Leopold family be laughed at? He fumed. Then he thought of his younger daughter Abelia. How is Leah doing? Does she feel lonely? Usually she likes to stick close to Karina. At the mention of the adorable Abelia, the mother's worries instantly vanished. She's so much better than her sister. She just keeps going to Karina's room. Though Abelia is young, her heart is far more mature than her irresponsible sister. At the mention of Karina, the Duke couldn't help but get angry again. She's really too willful, running away for such a trivial matter. Have we ever mistreated her? Is her allowance not enough? Or have we not bought her what she wanted? It's precisely because she's never suffered that she would do such a thing, her father berated her. Her mother also expressed agreement. Indeed, we've never mistreated Karina. Marin looked at Karina lying in bed with a fever, feeling a pang of sadness. What was she hiding? He wondered. Even in such pain, why did she still prevent him from calling a doctor? After a long while, Karina woke up and struggled to open her eyes. Alone again, she thought as she gained consciousness, but heard a familiar voice beside her. "You're awake." She was startled. Marin spoke again. "Your fever hasn't broken yet, just keep lying down." This left Karina at a loss. "Your Grace, why are you here?" "That's a good question, but how could our proud Duke admit he stayed to care for her out of concern? Didn't I promise not to call a doctor, and it wouldn't be appropriate to ask servants to care for you now, so I've decided to stay with you." Karina couldn't believe it. This was the first time anyone had been willing to stay with her when she was sick. Having suffered unfair treatment for years, Karina couldn't help but ask, "I'm sick, don't you find me troublesome?" The Duke seemed to sense the worry in Karina's words. He immediately gave her a reassuring answer. "You're sick and need care, and you're my guest. How could I find that troublesome?" Karina smiled a genuine smile. Back at home, she was always the one selflessly giving, always caring for her sick brothers and sisters. No one had ever cared about her when she was ill. This feeling of being cared for felt so good. Even her family never looked after her, but this fiancé she had only met a few times was willing to stay with her until dawn. She was grateful. When Miron tried to get up to retrieve medicine from her bag, she anxiously grabbed his hand. "I can't take medicine now." Before leaving, the doctor had warned her this was her body's final resistance medication, couldn't be used otherwise her body would collapse faster, but the Duke, who had been single for 20 years, blushed deeply at this sudden intimate contact. No, your forehead is too hot," he stuttered, insisting. But Karina still stubbornly refused to take medicine. The Duke could only helplessly sit down. He really had no way with this willful lady. Seeing the Duke's reaction, Karina couldn't help but cover her mouth and giggle, although her body felt cold and heavy and her vision was blurry. This feeling of being cared for and allowed to be willful was truly addictive. Miron also instructed Karina that she could sleep more, and he would stay right there until she woke up. Hearing his genuinely caring words and feeling the real touch on her palm, Karina felt her eyelids growing heavier. This feeling was truly reassuring. Could she really have such care? The Duke, watching the sleeping Karina, quietly changed his original plans. He would wait until winter passed before sending a telegram to her family. She didn't seem happy at home and apparently had no one to rely on, so he would let her stay here for a few more months. Since Karina fell ill, the Duke had become extremely attentive. He came to Karina's room every day to check on her. He would tease the shy Karina, saying she was always like a startled rabbit. He invited her to have lunch together, and even shared his thrilling moments of monster hunting. He even noticed that Karina enjoyed drawing, last time he saw her bag full of drawing tools. This observation greatly surprised Karina. Her family, with whom she had lived under the same roof for over a decade, didn't know her interests, yet this fiancé, who had only known her for a few days, understood her. Stunned, Karina accidentally bumped against the Duke's chest as he suddenly turned. Such an intimate gesture startled them both. To dissipate the awkwardness, Miran mentioned that Karina could go to the roof at dawn or sunset to see a different kind of beautiful views, but also added a long list of instructions. The wind is very cold here, you must wear more clothes before going, be sure to tell me before you go up, also you must come down every hour to warm up, if you don't want to become dried squid you must remember my words. Faced with the Duke's nagging, Karina showed no impatience, but rather felt happy. Being cared for felt so good, though why compare her to dried squid? Duke Miran mentioned their initial engagement ceremony. At that time Karina was like a walking corpse, silently following behind her maid, forced and unwilling to be engaged, practically written on her face. The Duke told her that if she didn't want to get engaged, she should have made it clear to her parents, as this was a lifelong matter. But how could Miran know Karina's situation at that time of the engagement was something decided by their parents? They never asked for Karina's opinion. Even on the day of the engagement, her parents didn't attend her ceremony because her sister Leah wasn't feeling well. Hearing his account of events, Karina repeatedly bowed and apologized to the Duke, but the Duke shrugged, saying, "What I mean is, if you don't like something you can tell me directly in the future," to cheer up the sick Karina. Miran specifically brought her to dine in a glass-domed greenhouse because Karina had mentioned earlier that she disliked greasy food. He instructed the maid to place light dishes in front of Karina. Karina had a realization. In front of someone who truly cares about you, there's no need to deliberately disguise yourself. Someone who truly cares about you will remember every word you say. But this also made Karina feel somewhat guilty. She had thought her fiancé would be cold to her, but the reality was quite the opposite. If she were to die here, wouldn't that cause him trouble? Yet she was so addicted to this feeling of being cared for that she didn't want to leave like someone who had never seen light. She could endure darkness, but the moment sunlight tears through the snow, her strong will could no longer bear the bone-chilling cold. She nervously apologized to the Duke for not giving prior notice before arriving, causing him much inconvenience. Meanwhile, Karina wondered whether to tell the Duke about her sickness. But even if I told him my condition wouldn't improve if he drove me out because of it, what would I do? Finally, after weighing the pros and cons, Karina chose to keep it a secret. At the same time, Miran also expressed his apologies to Karina. His anger wasn't because he disliked her arrival, but because he was worried she might be in danger. "Forget what I said that day, I hope you won't take it to heart," he said. Karina smiled genuinely once more, and so they enjoyed a wonderful lunch together. This was the first time Karina had eaten so well. She remembered what Miran had said before lunch. There was a different scenery on the roof. Should she go see it? Karina had a fever again. A deafening voice echoed throughout the Duke's mansion. The Duke's aura was radiating a low pressure. He examined her from head to toe. "Do you really take my words as mere wind in your ears? Didn't we agree? Why did you rush to the roof wearing just a robe? You really give me no peace," he scolded out of worry. A few hours ago, Karina, who woke up early, couldn't sleep again. She didn't want to trouble anyone and forgot the Duke's instructions from yesterday. She went to the roof alone and saw a breathtaking view of sunrise. Miran was right about the view. And as someone who loved to draw, how could Karina miss such a great opportunity? She immediately took out paper and pen and began to draw. As her pen tip swept across the paper, Karina's body temperature also continued to rise from fever. Feeling cold, she told herself, just a little more, just a little more. Eventually her body gave up. She uncontrollably fell backwards. Fortunately, Miran, who had been worried about Karina, happens to visit her room and noticed her fall. He caught her in time and furiously scolded Karina, "If you want to freeze to death, just say, so I can help you pour ice cubes into the bathtub." Faced with the Duke's nagging, Karina just smiled foolishly. His anger vanished as he saw her carefree smile. "Why don't you become a human heater? That would save me on fuel costs," he muttered. He noticed the unfinished painting in Karina's hand. "May I see your painting?" he asked politely. "Of course, though my painting skills might not be very good," she responded shyly. Compared to her outstanding older brother, perfect in every way, her brother Pelton, who could learn any skill at a glance, and her sister Abelia, who could easily embroider complex and beautiful patterns, her drawings were truly insignificant. Her parents wouldn't spare them a glance. But the Duke became entranced looking at Karina's painting. I think sometimes being overly modest isn't a good thing, although I'm not very accomplished in this area and can't give professional criticism. This is the most beautiful painting I've seen in all these years. You paint very well. Miran's serious affirmation made Karina blush deeply. Since childhood, nothing she did had ever been acknowledged. Her parents' eyes were only on her siblings. This led her to constantly deny herself, believing she was just a useless ornamental lady, but now someone affirmed her abilities too. Though he might be just comforting her, this feeling was still sweet. The Duke seemed to see through her lack of confidence. He seriously stated that after Karina finished this painting, he could find a world-renowned expert in this field to evaluate it, but mentioning this person also made him frown. That guy, just looking at him makes one want to punch him. A doctor entered the room, interrupting their conversation. The Duke briefly explained to the doctor the reason for Karina's fever. As soon as the doctor extended his hand, Karina tensed up. She covered herself tightly with the blanket, leaving the doctor halfway, extending his hand, extremely embarrassed. He could only turn his pleading gaze to the Duke who had called him. But Miran was also puzzled. He didn't understand why the usually polite Karina would act this way. "Didn't I say I don't like doctors?" A small sound came from under the blanket, but the Duke no longer planned to indulge her. He directly picked her up with the blanket. Thinking that the doctor made Karina uncomfortable, Duke was angry. The doctor was shocked to the point of his scalp going numb. "How can you be rough with a noble young lady?" he berated the doctor. Karina was also stunned, speechless. "I'm already being very considerate of her." The doctor held his forehead in stress. These two people were really headache-inducing. To dissolve the misunderstanding, Karina agreed to let the doctor check her. Finally, after careful communication with Karina, the doctor successfully took Karina's pulse. His expression instantly became grave. He carefully helped Karina lie down on the bed. He went out with the Duke to talk about her condition. Unstable pulse, weak heartbeat, and some spots appearing on her body. It seems the young lady have some kind of heart disease. Hearing the doctor's diagnosis, the Duke finally knew the willful young lady before him who had run away from home was in such a serious condition. But the Duke didn't understand why would someone whose life was coming to an end choose to run away from home. What was she hiding? The Duke recalled the day of their engagement. On that day, only Karina's brothers were present. Her gaze toward them was filled with disappointment, but when someone greeted her, face would wear a practiced smile. Did she always blindly cater to others like this? He wondered. He summoned his messenger hawk, hoping that as the first snow approached he would receive a reply from that detestable guy he asked to evaluate Karina's work. Meanwhile, in the Southern Medical Clinic, the doctor who had diagnosed Karina couldn't stop worrying about her. He decided to go north to find Karina. Northern doctors didn't understand artist's disease, so he had to help her. He instructed his apprentice Norton to take good care of the clinic. "You must treat every patient fairly." That art's disease patient's condition became so serious because her family doctor didn't take it seriously. Even her parents seemed quite biased. "So you must treat every patient equally, or I will not spare you," he lectured and hurriedly set off northward. At the same time, in the Duke Leopold's mansion, situation was not calm. They still hadn't received any news about Karina. Her older brother was very anxious, hoping his father would send soldiers to search, but the Duke still firmly refused. Once troops were sent out to search, the Duke's dignity would be lost. He clicked his tongue in extreme displeasure. How can she be so inconsiderate of her family? Suddenly the Duke noticed the family photos on the desk. There were pictures of Isabella, individual portraits of his sons, but Karina's was conspicuously missing. Had there never been an individual portrait of Karina? He wondered. He got up and walked toward Karina's room, following his memory as he recalled Karina's complaint to them that night. "So you still remember where my room is? You haven't come for several years. I thought you had forgotten about me." At the time, he didn't think there was any problem, assuming it was just Karina complaining about being woken up in the middle of the night, but thinking about it now, it truly had been many years since he'd visited Karina's room. So long that he momentarily couldn't even be sure where her room was. Finally, after wandering through half the Duke's mansion, he found Karina's room at the end of a pitch-black corridor. He remembered back then Karina had mentioned she was afraid of the dark and didn't want to stay in this room. At the time he thought she was being unreasonable and had severely scolded her for it, but now looking at it, it seemed normal for a child to be afraid of such dimly lit corridor. He looked at the sparse furniture in the room and thought this was indeed too minimal for an adult, but if she needed anything, why didn't she say so? He pulled open the drawer of the dressing table and found Karina's old drawings. It depicted a place they had visited 2 years ago. At that time, because Abelia's health had improved, they postponed Karina's birthday and went on a family picnic together. But hadn't Karina been with the family? Karina's mother also joined her husband in her daughter's room. She saw Karina's drawings and remarked, "It's been so long since I've seen Karina's drawings. When she was little, she often showed them to me, but later, perhaps out of shyness, she stopped. I thought she had lost interest in drawing. I didn't expect she still draws so well at that. I wonder how she's doing outside. She's really more trouble as she grows older. How can she make us worry so much now that she's gone? Leah has no one to take care of her. Leah misses her irresponsible sister very much." Hearing these words, the Duke's slight feeling of guilt also extinguished. He waved his hand dismissively. "She'll come back on her own. The money she has isn't enough to support her life outside. When she runs out of money, she'll naturally bow her head to us." Norton was examining the chronically frail Abelia as usual, carefully comforting her as she was sad about her sister running away. Abelia constantly told him how good her sister was to her. Whenever she felt lonely, her sister would stay by her side, not even meeting friends, whether it was reading fairy tales or sleeping with her. She never refused once. "Because I was jealous that my sister could go out and I deliberately prevented her from seeing her friends. But she wasn't angry," she said. "Is that so? She truly is a good sister." Norton didn't voice the second half of his thought. "But she chose to abandon you and run away. No matter how wrong she felt for her sick sister's sake, shouldn't she at least send a letter home? Leah defends her so much, but she's truly a selfish person." Abelia, hearing Norton praise her sister, was very happy. She also took out her sister's drawings that she had accidentally discovered. "Look at these. Doesn't my sister draw so well? I only just realized how amazing my sister is." She showed them to Norton. Norton's eyes widened in shock. "Is this really drawn by Karina? It's so lifelike and dynamic." Suddenly, as if struck by a thought, he turned to leave. He recalled that before his teacher departed, he'd casually mentioned a patient suffering from an art disease who was also called Karina. At the time, he had a fleeting suspicion but dismissed it, thinking it impossible. There were so many people named Karina in the capital. How could it be the Duke's Karina? She didn't possess any special abilities, and she was perfectly healthy, but now things seemed more complicated than they appeared. He opened the clinic's diagnostic records. Looking at the entries, he finally confirmed that the person suffering from the art disease was indeed Karina Leopold, yet he chose not to tell the Duke. Revealing this would surely break Abelia's heart. Perhaps her quietly dying elsewhere would be better for his beloved Leah. After a night of high fever, Karina finally showed signs of improvement. The next day, upon waking, she felt extremely thirsty. Just as she was about to get up to fetch water from the kitchen, she noticed a steaming pitch of hot water on the bedside table. It was clearly placed there by Duke Miron, who wanted Karina to have warm water as soon as she woke up. Karina wept as she hugged her blanket, and she shouldn't have come here. The Duke probably knew about her condition by now. Why was he being so kind to her? She had expected him to ignore her arrival, letting her pass away quietly, but why was he being so gentle? Like a beam of light shining into her dark life, yet she would soon be gone while he would continue living. If he felt guilty about her death, that would truly be unfair. What should she do now? Her medicine was almost gone, and she lacked the strength to leave the north. Perhaps she should go live in a monastery. As Karina pondered, the Duke appeared. He immediately asked Karina exactly which type of art disease she had. Karina didn't want to involve the Duke further in her life. It wouldn't be fair to him, so Karina didn't directly answer his question. She apologized to him repeatedly for concealing her illness, for her selfish actions, for abruptly disrupting the Duke's peaceful life. She begged the Duke to forget everything that had happened and pretend she had never appeared. The Duke urged Karina to give up painting. That way her condition won't worsen and she could get treatment. But Karina refused without hesitation. If she gave up painting, she would truly have nothing left. During all these years of unfair treatment from her parents, only the creatures she created would comfort her. Only they could truly empathize and understand her. If Karina abandoned painting, her life would have no meaning. For her, painting wasn't just a skill, it was a friend that would never betray her. Miron sighed at her reasoning, but stopped trying to persuade her too. He can understand her point. Everyone has something they can't give up, just as he couldn't abandon swordsmanship. Understanding the importance of painting to Karina, he moved on from the topic instead. He asked Karina why she had run away from home with such a serious illness. Shouldn't she stay with her family and receive treatment at home? Karina was drawn back into those unhappy memories. Have you ever experienced discrimination in your own home? My birthday conflicted with my brother's graduation ceremony, so I had to celebrate alone. Because my younger brother liked it, I had to give him my only birthday gift. My sister would always receive praise from our parents for the smallest things, while no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get their attention. So when I learned about my disease, I didn't want to keep living within such an environment. That's why I chose to run away from home. Do you think I'm childish? Like a child who never grew up, Karina spoke hesitantly. Spoken out loud, her reasons might seem petty. She still had food to eat and clothes to wear. The only thing she lacked was love and care of her family, while her siblings received it. Was only neglected and taught to give in to her siblings unconditionally. She can't expect others to understand her. Childish, did you ruin your brother's graduation ceremony just to celebrate your birthday, or thrown a tantrum to get your brother to return your gift? Jabbing him with a needle, or bullied your sister out of jealousy when she received praise? You did none of these things, so how could you be called childish? True childishness is accidentally spilling water on your father's documents and running away from home for a week out of fear of being scolded. That's childish. But you've always been yielding to them. How could that be called childish? But isn't yielding to family only natural? Why should it be natural you yield to them, but who yields to you? Miran's reaction surprised Karina. Yes, since when did I start believing that yielding to them was only natural? Karina was sad at her own mindset. The Duke saw Karina's pain and pulled her head to rest against his chest. Don't hold back anymore, cry it out. This is my first time comforting someone. I've seen this in novels. I think this is how it's done. Cry, let it all out. You don't have to bear this burden alone anymore. I'll share it with you. He comforted her as long as she needed. Meanwhile, Duke Carlos, the guy Miran talked about with Karina to evaluate her painting, arrived at the Duke Leopold's mansion. His purpose was to investigate Karina's condition and incidentally inform the Duke Leopold of Karina's whereabouts. Upon arrival, Duke Carlos asked to see Karina's previous paintings. Though confused, the Duke Leopold complied due to the difference in their status. He ordered his subordinates to bring the paintings they had nearly thrown away as garbage. These were casually painted by the family's second daughter, crudely made, probably not worthy of the Carlos family's attention. He spoke, berating his daughter. Duke Carlos was speechless. How could a father belittle his daughter so much? Moreover, before coming, he had already seen the paintings Duke Miran had sent were hardly crude and worthless. He bluntly defended Karina against this biased father. It seems you need to improve your ability to appreciate art. Even a layman couldn't possibly look at these with a straight face and call them worthless. Duke Leopold trembled with anger. Lord Carlos, you suddenly visited and requested to see Karina's paintings, though I don't understand your reasons. Frankly, your behavior feels offensive to me. But Duke Carlos wasn't intimidated by the Duke Leopold. In his view, treating a priceless artwork like garbage was the real offense. At the same time, from their conversation, he learned that Karina's relationship with her family was poor. Among the art disease patients he had previously assisted, few had good relationships with their families, but Karina clearly had the greatest discord with hers, so great that her family didn't even know of her powerful painting abilities. But Carlos didn't know that Karina had indeed shown her work to her parents, but their attention always lingered on her older brother and younger siblings. They just didn't pay any attention to their healthy, ordinary second daughter. It appears you don't know, your grace, that your daughter has the art disease. Duke Leopold looked incredulous upon hearing this. How could that be possible? Karina doesn't have such talent. Besides, she's always been healthy. If she were truly ill, why would she run away from home? Duke Carlos laughed. So going to her fiancé's home is called running away? Duke Leopold was shocked. Karina was in the north? How does she manage that? Carlos was exasperated. It seems you don't even know where your daughter is, yet you claim she's healthy. I see no reason to remain here any longer. I must go see this art disease patient and help with her treatment. Carlos got up to leave. Though inwardly furious, Duke Leopold still rose to see him off, constrained by their difference in status. Thank you for telling me about my daughter. I'll certainly visit to express my gratitude. Duke Carlos was nearly outraged by this biased father. Your grace, you only hear what you want to hear, unwilling to believe your daughter has the art disease, yet willing to believe she went north. If someone told me my child was ill, my first concern would be their health. No need for future visits of gratitude. With that, Duke Carlos slammed the door shut behind him as he left. Looking at the partially vanished content of the painting scroll in his hand, he was absolutely certain this was the power of creation capable of granting painted creatures brief life. It seemed a young lady's condition was already quite serious. The words spoken by Duke Carlos before his departure had been echoing in the Duke's mind for days, leaving him dazed. Due to Karina's departure, many matters at the Duke's mansion remained unattended. His wife had collapsed from overwork. The Duke himself had also developed health issues and started taking medication, yet all these complicated matters had previously been handled by Karina alone. Clearly, the Duke never considered this. At this moment, Estranged entered his office with the family Dr. Norton. Norton reported on Abelia's condition and the Duchess's recovery, but from beginning to end he never mentioned Karina suffering from the art disease. Even as he left, he maintained his position. According to him, letting Karina die quietly elsewhere would be the best choice for Abelia and the entire Duke's household. After Norton left, Duke casually brought up Duke Miron. Estranged, you attended Karina's engagement party in my place. What kind of man did Duke Miron seem to be? Estranged gave a positive assessment. Just as rumored, he's an impeccable person, and he took good care of Karina. At that time, Karina also seemed quite satisfied with him. Hearing this, the Duke felt very displeased. She ran away from home just because someone treated her well, completely ignoring whether we could manage without her or not. Now, because of her selfishness, her mother has collapsed from exhaustion, and all this time not a single letter was sent. Constantly worrying her parents, that's truly unfilial. Her father just never wanted to see things from Karina's point of view. But I remember Karina wasn't like this before. When did she become this way? Even now, the Duke still refused to believe his daughter had the art disease and was dying. Meanwhile, far in the north, Karina had recently found a new pleasure. She would rise before dawn every day, taking her painting tools to capture Miron practicing sword play under moonlight. Meanwhile, she had begun filling out her death wish list, wanting to do some interesting and worthwhile things before leaving this world. But having always revolved around her family, she didn't know what to write. She decided to ask the Duke what was worth seeing in the north, and just as she was thinking, the Duke's sudden voice startled her. The north has nothing worth seeing except fierce magical beasts. What are you doing so secretively? I knocked 5 times, but you didn't hear me. He then grabbed Karina's unfinished painting and asked, "What's this? I wondered why you wake up so early every day. So you've been secretly painting me at dawn? As the ruler of the north, if you want to paint me, you'll have to pay extra." This embarrassed Karina terribly, and she blurted out frantically, "It's because you look so handsome practicing swords under the dim moonlight." Her reply made Miron blush furiously. He hurriedly changed the subject. "I'm going to inspect the territory today. Would you like to come along?" Soon after, a well-dressed Karina appeared before everyone. The Duke blushed again. He eagerly took Karina's hand and helped her into the carriage. Inside carriage, Miron stared at Karina without blinking. "Now you look like a proper noble lady. What are you holding?" "I noticed it earlier." Karina shyly explained the purpose of her notebook. Hearing this, Miron offered some advice. "You don't need to write grand things or think too deeply, just note down achievable things. If I may be frank, I think you overthink things and care too much about others' opinions while neglecting yourself." Karina, this world is wide. Don't confine yourself to that small Duke's mansion. Learn to love yourself more. You're like a towering tree, but your family planted you in a tiny pot, forcing you to take root in that confined space. Now this tree need no longer endure, can break free from the pot, so this isn't your fault. I hope that in the days ahead with me by your side, you'll learn to cherish yourself more. Miron took Karina to the bustling market, and she was shocked by what she saw. There was a magical beast being slaughtered. There were decorations made from beast hides and bones. These were things she had never seen or heard of before. Seeing Karina's reaction, Miron naturally awakened his domineering husband attributes. "Just tell me what you like. I can buy this entire street for you." But just as he spoke, the city's emergency alarm sounded. This alarm only rang when magical beasts attacked. Leaving everything, they rushed to the city wall. The Duke swiftly assessed the situation from the soldiers' accounts and instructed Karina to wait for him. To Karina's shock, he leaped down from the high city wall and engaged the attacking magical beast. Miron fought with valor, had inflicted numerous wounds on monsters, but due to its massive size and tough hide covering its body, killing it wasn't easy. The best Duke Marion could do was to drive it away. Karina watched the intense battle with great concern. She wanted to help the Duke who had cared for her, but going down would only cause trouble. Suddenly, she had an idea. She quickly rummaged through her travel bag for her painting tools. Perhaps this could be useful. It might help him. Soon after, under the Duke's forceful resistance, the magical beast lost patience. With a frustrated roar, it reluctantly turned to leave. Karina anxiously ran toward Miran. He was tallying the casualties when he noticed Karina. She was already before him, breathless, her face full of concern. She carefully wiped the blood from his forehead with her handkerchief. Seeing the worry in her eyes, he quickly reassured her, "This is just the beast's blood, don't worry, I'm not injured." Then he took out a necklace and placed it around Karina's neck. His subordinates were shocked, exclaiming various remarks. Miran was displeased by their audacious behavior and punished them to run 30 laps around the city. Karina's doctor also arrived in the north at this time. Finding Karina, who was out with the Duke, both the Duke and Karina were surprised. "The north is so vast, how did you manage to find us so precisely?" Faced with their confusion, the doctor showed them an embroidery. "I found you through the power of miracles. If I embroider while thinking about a particular thing, and then burn the embroidery, I can know where things are. In my youth, I even caught criminals with this ability," Doctor explained. Miran immediately grasped the key point. "Could it be that you're also an art disease patient? Has your art disease been cured?" he asked hopefully. The doctor shook his head regretfully. "My art disease hasn't been cured. Because I overused this power, I'm nearly blind. The only reason I can still see anything now is because I gave up embroidery. It's the simplest and fastest solution." The Duke persisted. "Is that really the only way?" "Yes, it's the only way. Actually, not everyone gets the art disease. Even among artists who create miracles, only 1% develop this condition. But vision loss like mine isn't rare among art disease cases. The rarest is the type that creates life at the cost of one's own." The Duke sighed in relief upon hearing this. It seemed that as long as it wasn't the life-creating type of art disease, life wasn't in danger. "Yes, so my purpose in coming is to confirm which type of heart disease Miss Karina has." Hearing this, Karina anxiously interrupted the doctor. "Let's discuss this in private." In her room, they talked for a long time. She told everything she has endured all her life to Doctor. The doctor hadn't expected this fragile child to bear such great suffering. He sympathetically took Karina's hand, gently comforting the crying Karina.